Hello and welcome to our look at chapter 10 in our textbook. This week we're looking at the last of the Abrahamic faiths, Islam. I am Dr. Tim Harrison and I'm coming to you from my tack-turn back cave somewhere in Bristol, Virginia, sporting a brand new haircut, by the way, this week. Most of the time we know about Islam only through the news and through popular culture. Therefore, we think of it as a radical religion, but we'll take a look at it and see that Islam is very different from the way it's portrayed at times. And it is an Abrahamic faith because the Arabs believe that Ishmael, the oldest son of Abraham, was their father, and therefore Abraham was their spiritual father. And they have Mecca as their major religious city. Now, Islam was based on the Arabic community, which is based on tribes and a clan society where certain people had great power. The clans had great power, but it also causes a great deal of tension between clans, and we see this in the history of Islam at time. Clans are very loyal. They tend to be very mobile, and they love commerce. They enjoy commerce. And Mecca, the center of Islamic religion, was sort of to begin with, was a hub for commerce in the Arabian desert. Now, one of the things that we need to know about Mecca is that there is a square rock there that is worshipped. It is still worshipped today. It's still there, but it was there even long before Muhammad came to the scene and Islam arose. In fact, it may have been there when Ishmael first came there. It is believed that when Hagar and Ishmael were put out of the clan of Abraham and Sarah, when they were driven out, and as they were starving and about to die in the desert, Mecca is where they went and they drank from the well. Islam still believes that the well that they drink from there, the holy well, is that well where they went to quench their thirst. And so Mecca is a very important place. It becomes very important also in Islam as well. Now, Muhammad was born in about 570 CE. His father dies before he was born. His mother dies not long after he was born. He becomes an orphan, and he's raised by his grandfather and his uncles. One of the uncles that is very influential in the life of Muhammad was a Christian and helped to raise Muhammad. Now, as he grew, he was poor. He wasn't very well off. But as a young man, he marries a widow who was very, very rich. And so he becomes a caravan trader. And because of this, he is able to expand somewhat. And this will help later on as he begins to expand his religious beliefs as well. He has a vision. And in that vision, he is in Jerusalem. And he's taken there by the angel Gabriel. And while he is there, he has this vision. And his wife actually encourages him to write these things down. These writings become what we know of as the Quran. The Quran is the holy writings. They are the stories and the ruminations of Muhammad. And the Quran is seen as the divine or the incarnated Word of God. Now that's important because, as we know, Muslims put a great deal of trust and a great deal of their importance on the Quran, so much so that they become quite agitated when it is disrespected. We have seen this a couple of times over the last few years in society where Westerners may not have respected the Quran as much as Muslims would have liked us to. The reason for this is that the Quran, being the incarnated Word of God, is like Jesus. For Christians, Jesus is the incarnated Word of God. It is God made, manifested to mankind. This is how Muslims believe that God is manifested, through the words of the Quran. Jesus is not incarnated, according to Muslims. He was a great prophet who was not resurrected. In fact, many Muslims believe that he did not die on a cross, but that Judas was actually substituted for Jesus on the cross. Now, as Muhammad has these visions, he begins to gather followers. One of the interesting things about Islam is Islam's not only a religious idea, but it's also intertwined with government. It is a way of governing oneself. And that is still thought to be true by many Muslims today. Now, there are secular Muslims that separate their religious views with their views of government. Turkey was a notable country that did this and became secular. Malaysia is another that has done this. Now, after Muhammad dies, some of his followers believe that Ali, his nephew, is the proper caliphate to be followed. Others thought that God brought together or brought other holy men to be these caliphates, to be these imams that would be the great leaders. And this is where we get the split between the Sunni and the Shia. We'll get into that in a minute. I want to just describe to you the 5 pillars of Islam, because this is what their religious belief, their practice is built upon. And the 5 beliefs are: 1, that you have to make a sincere declaration to Allah. There is but one God, Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet, is their declarations. Now, Judaism and Christianity also has these declarations. It's very important in the practice of Islam, though. Also, we see the concept of prayer. Muslims must pray 5 times a day, facing toward Mecca as they pray. In many of these countries, you hear these beautiful calls to worship during the times, these specific times when Muslims must pray. Also, they fast during Ramadan. Ramadan is usually sometime around September. They fast during this time, and they fast not only food, they fast everything. They fast water, sex, everything, work. Everything is fasted during Ramadan. It's a time to reflect on yourself before Muhammad. And then finally, the travel to Mecca. During your lifetime, you must make 1 trip to Mecca, and there is an allowance if someone cannot do that, if they're poor and they can't do that. But for the most part, all Muslims try to make 1 trip to Mecca, a pilgrimage. It's very important. And we have seen in the past, at times when the warring parties of the Shia and the Sunni will attack one another during their pilgrimages that they have. Now, one of the things that's very important about Islam is that God makes no mistakes. Therefore, the Quran cannot be translated. It cannot be changed in any form or fashion. So therefore, again, it is a part of their religious belief that the Quran cannot be changed. Now, the followers of Ali become the Sunni. They accept other writings within the context of Islam. They are not the divine word, but they do accept other writings. Sunnis are the largest part of Islam. Something like 80 or 85% of Muslims are Sunni. And so the Sunnis follow after Ali, but the others, the Shia, follow after holy men called imams. And therefore, Sunnis believe that Shias do not truly follow the proper forms of Islam, and this has caused a great war over the time. The majority of Iraq and almost all of Iran are Shia, and Saudi Arabia and the other Arab countries are Sunni. I believe Egypt is Sunni as well. So that's part of the difficulty that we have in trying to view and understand Islam, is that we tend to view it through the wars and the rise of violence that we see in Islam, and the things that quite often that are attached to Islam are really cultural. They really had to do more with the clan and the tribe than they do with the religion. Very difficult sometimes for us to separate those two. So that's just a brief introduction to Islam. I hope you have a good week. This is going to be a busy week, so be sure to get everything done. And remember this little bit of wisdom from my hometown of Lexington, Georgia. Don't raise the pig if you don't like the lard.